I have a confession to make. Not to the world, to my daughter. And it took me 30 years to be ready. Simone is getting married in 3 weeks. Beautiful girl. Smart, driven, built like me from the inside out. That last part is what kept me up at night. Because I know what built like me costs. I know exactly what it costs. 3 weeks before her wedding, I sat her down in my kitchen. Same kitchen where I taught her to make cornbread. Same kitchen where she told me she got into Northwestern. Same kitchen where she cried when her first business deal fell through, and I told her, "Baby, that's just the tuition. Pay it and keep going." I sat her down in that kitchen, and I said, "I need to tell you something. Not as your mother, as a woman who got something very, very wrong." My name is Loretta James, 54 years old, founder and CEO of Bright Path Health, one of the largest Black-owned healthcare management companies in the Midwest. 4 regional offices, 230 employees, 17 years of building something from the absolute ground up. I have been on the cover of 3 magazines. I have keynoted conferences I used to sneak into for free. I have a daughter who is brilliant and a business that is thriving and a life that looks, from the outside, like everything I ever wanted. And I am here to tell you, it is not everything. It was never going to be everything. I just didn't know that until it was too late to go back. Before I tell you about David, let me tell you about the girl I used to be, because you can't understand what I gave up without understanding what I came from. I grew up in Memphis, Tennessee, South Memphis, the kind of neighborhood where ambition was both the most respected and most dangerous thing you could carry. My mother worked double shifts at the hospital laundry for 22 years. My father left when I was 9. Not dramatically, not in a fight. He just stopped coming home one Tuesday, and my mother never mentioned his name again. That was its own kind of lesson. I learned it early. Depend on yourself. Build your own table. Don't wait for anyone to hand you anything. At 19, I packed one bag, $40 in my shoe, a bus ticket to Chicago that my Aunt Clara bought me because she said, "Loretta, Memphis is going to swallow you whole if you stay." I believed her. I got on that bus. I didn't look back. Not once. I thought that was strength. For a long time, I thought that was the strongest thing I'd ever done. Now I'm not so sure. Now I think some of what I called strength was just fear, dressed up in ambition's clothing, running so fast towards something that I never slowed down long enough to hold on to what was right there in my hands. Where are you watching from tonight? Drop your city in the comments, because what I'm about to tell you, I needed to say out loud for 30 years, and maybe you need to hear it. Chicago in January is no joke. I arrived with $40, a duffel bag, and more pride than sense. Found a room in a shared house in Bronzeville, $60 a week, 4 women, 1 bathroom, 1 radiator that worked when it felt like it. Got a job at a diner on 47th Street within 3 days, because I have always known how to survive. That part was never the problem. The diner was called Millie's. I worked the early shift, 5:30 in the morning until 2 in the afternoon. By the time I'd been there 6 weeks, I knew every regular by name, order, and how they took their coffee. That's how I've always been. I pay attention. I remember people. It's the thing that built my business eventually. It's also the thing that noticed David Cole the first morning he walked through that door. He sat at the counter, end seat, the one with the wobbly stool that everyone avoided. He didn't avoid it. He sat on it, tested it once, and then just stayed, like the wobble didn't bother him, like he'd decided this was his seat and that was that. I noticed that. He ordered black coffee and scrambled eggs, read the paper, didn't bother me with small talk, left a 20 on a $4 check. I stood there looking at that 20 for a full 10 seconds. Then I went back to the counter. "Sir, I think you made a mistake." He looked up from the paper. Brown eyes. Steady. The kind of steady that isn't performing anything. "No mistake," he said. "That's a $20 tip on a $4 check. I know what it is. I can't take that." He folded the paper, looked me directly. You've been here since before 6 in the morning. You've refilled my coffee 3 times without me asking. You remembered that I didn't want hot sauce even though I didn't tell you. You just noticed the face I made when the man next to me used it. He picked up his coat. Take the 20. He left. I stood there, holding that 20, thinking, who is this man? He came back the next morning, and the one after that, and every weekday morning for the next 4 months. Same seat, same order, same 20. I stopped arguing about the tip after the 3rd week, but I never stopped noticing him. David Cole was 23 years old, worked in hospital administration at Cook County, studying for his master's at night. Serious man, quiet man. The kind of quiet that isn't emptiness, it's fullness. He had so much going on inside him that the outside just held still. I had never met anyone like that. Everyone I'd grown up with was loud with their wanting, loud with their pain, loud with their hunger. David was the first person I'd ever met who seemed to already know what he was worth and didn't need anyone else to confirm it. The first time he asked me to dinner, I said no. Second time, no. Third time, he didn't ask. He just slid a piece of paper across the counter with an address and a time written on it. Looked at me. That's where I'll be Saturday at 7, he said. You don't have to come. He left. Saturday at 7, I was standing outside that restaurant in the only good dress I owned, and David Cole was already there, waiting, like he'd known all along I'd come.
I need to tell you what David was. Because 30 years later, I still don't think I have the right words, but I'm going to try. David Cole was the first man who ever made me feel like I was not too much. You have to understand what that meant. I had been too much my whole life. Too loud in school, too ambitious for South Memphis, too serious for the boys who wanted easy, too hungry for the ones who were comfortable. Too much. Always too much. David looked at all of that, and he just smiled. Like I was exactly the right amount of everything. He believed in me before I believed in myself. That's a thing people say. It sounds like a greeting card. With David, it was specific, concrete. He believed in me the way an engineer believes in a bridge, not because it looks pretty, but because he had examined every beam and knew what it could hold. I told him about Bright Path Health when it was nothing, not even a business plan, just an idea I'd been carrying around in my head for 2 years, about the gaps I kept seeing in healthcare management in underserved communities, about the money left on the table, about the people falling through the cracks because nobody had organized the system properly. I told him all of this over dinner one night, expecting him to nod politely, expecting him to say, "That sounds interesting, baby." Instead, he put down his fork, pulled out a napkin, and started asking me questions. Hard questions. The kind that don't come from politeness. The kind that come from someone who actually believes the thing you're describing is going to exist. What's your entry market? What's your funding strategy for year 1? Have you mapped the regulatory requirements by state? I stared at him. David, it's just an idea right now. No, it isn't, he said. Calm, certain. It stopped being just an idea the moment you described it that specifically. You've been building this in your head for years. You just haven't started writing it down yet. He slid the napkin across the table. Start. I started. 6 months later, I had a business plan. 12 months later, I had my first investor meeting. David helped me rehearse it. Every night for 2 weeks. He played the investor, asked the hardest questions he could think of, made me answer them until my answers were unshakable. The morning of the meeting, he ironed my suit. I didn't ask him to. He just did it. Then he looked at me and said, "They're going to say yes." How do you know? Because I know what you're selling, and what you're selling is real. They said yes. That's what David was. He saw the CEO in me when I was still waiting tables at Millie's. He saw Bright Path Health when it was a napkin and a half-formed idea. He saw me, not who I was performing, not who I was trying to be. Me, the whole thing, and he loved it all, without conditions, without keeping score. And I told myself that love like that would always be there, that I could put it down for a minute, pick it up later, that it would wait. Love like that doesn't wait forever. I know that now.
The shift. Loretta watching herself make the mistake in real time, in memory. No villain, no betrayal, just a woman choosing the wrong thing repeatedly until the wrong thing becomes permanent. Bright Path launched in 2001. Simone was born in 1997. David and I had been together 6 years by then. He had proposed twice. I had said, not yet, both times. Not no, not yet. There is a difference, except when there isn't. The first year of Bright Path, I worked 18-hour days. That's not an exaggeration. That's a calendar fact. David took Simone to school every morning. David picked her up every afternoon. David made dinner. David did the things that keep a life running while I was busy building one. He never complained, not once. That should have told me something. A man who doesn't complain is either content or he's decided something. I told myself he was content. Year 2, I missed Simone's school play. Important client meeting. Couldn't move it. David took video, sent it to me during a bathroom break between sessions. I watched 40 seconds of it, sent back a heart emoji, went back into the meeting. Year 3, I missed our anniversary. I remembered at 11:15 at night, called David from a hotel room in Atlanta. He picked up. I'm sorry, I said. I know, he said. I'll make it up to you. I know, he said. 2 I knows. Both true, both carrying something I wasn't ready to hear. The thing about David is he never gave me an ultimatum, never said, Loretta, it's me or the business, never made me choose, because he knew if he made me choose, I would have chosen the business, and he loved me too much to put me in that position. So instead, he just waited for me to choose him without being asked. I kept not choosing, not because I didn't love him. I loved him completely. I just loved what I was building with the same completeness. And I didn't understand yet that love is not a feeling you can set aside and return to. It's a practice, daily, specific. It requires showing up. And I kept not showing up. 2004. Simone is 7. David sits down across from me at the kitchen table one Sunday morning. No drama, no raised voice, just sits down. I need to talk to you. I was on my laptop. I closed it. First time in a long time I closed it without being asked. Something in his face told me. I think we want different things, he said. David, not forever. I'm not saying forever. I'm saying right now. He looked at me. Those same steady eyes from the diner counter. Still steady. Still not performing anything. Right now, you want Bright Path more than you want us, and I understand that. I have always understood that about you. It's one of the things I love most. Pause. But I can't keep being the thing you come back to when the work is done. You're not Loretta. He said my name the way he always said my name, like it meant something. You are the most extraordinary woman I have ever known, and you are not here. He moved out 2 weeks later, took almost nothing, left the crib he'd built for Simone, left the bookshelves he'd put up in the hallway, left the 20-year plan we'd sketched on a yellow legal pad on our third date. I found it in the back of a kitchen drawer 6 months later. His handwriting, my handwriting, building something together on paper. I stood in that kitchen and I could not breathe. After David left, I did what I have always done. I worked. Not to forget him. I want to be clear about that. I worked because the work was real and the work needed doing. But I also worked because when I was building something, I knew exactly what I was. And after David left, I wasn't sure anymore. 2005. Bright Path opened its second regional office, Indianapolis. I was on a plane to Indianapolis when Simone lost her first tooth. David sent me a photo, her gap-toothed smile, his hand in the background holding a paper towel with a little blood on it. I cried in the window seat at 30,000 feet, then landed, walked into that office, and ran the best meeting I'd had all year. That's who I was, both things at once, always. 2007. Bright Path hit its first million in annual revenue. I celebrated alone in my office at 10 o'clock at night, a glass of champagne I'd been saving for 2 years. I called Pearl. She screamed down the phone for 4 full minutes. Then she said, "Where's Simone?" "At David's." "And where's David?" "Pearl, I'm just asking." I hung up on her. Then I called David. He picked up on the second ring. "We hit 1 million," I said. Silence. Then, "I knew you would." 3 words. No fanfare, no performance, just certainty. The same certainty he'd always had about me, even after everything. I held the phone for a long time after he hung up. 2009, Simone's 12th birthday. I made it, on time, with cake. She looked at me like I'd hung the moon. That look, I have run 230 people on the strength of that look. 2011, third regional office, Detroit. I was negotiating a lease on a Thursday when my phone buzzed. David. I let it go to voicemail. I told myself I'd call back after the meeting. I called back 4 days later. He'd called to tell me Simone had made honor roll. He'd already told her himself. He wasn't calling for information. He was calling because he thought I'd want to know, because he was still, even then, thinking about what I would want. I sat with that for a long time. 2013, a magazine put me on their cover, Black Enterprise, building health, building wealth, building legacy. My mother cried when she saw it, called every person she'd ever known in South Memphis. I framed it for her, kept one for myself, hung it in my office. What I didn't put in my office, the yellow legal pad, the 20-year plan, David's handwriting next to mine, that stayed in the kitchen drawer. I couldn't throw it away, couldn't look at it either. The years moved. Simone grew up, beautiful, sharp, determined. She watched me build Bright Path the way I had watched my mother work double shifts. She learned the lesson I taught her by living it in front of her every day. Work is the answer. Build your own table. Don't wait for anyone. And I was so proud of what she was becoming, and so afraid, because I could see it already. At 25, at 26, the way she talked about Tobias, with love but at a distance, the way she fit him in, around the meetings, around the deadlines, around the career she was building with the same hunger I had at her age. I recognized it, every bit of it, and I felt something cold move through me. The pivot, present tense now, Loretta and Simone in the kitchen. The intimacy shifts completely. 3 weeks before Simone's wedding, Tuesday evening, she'd come over for dinner, just the two of us, the way we do sometimes. She was on her phone for the first 40 minutes, work emails. I recognized the look. I know that look from the inside. I set a plate in front of her. She put the phone down. "Sorry, Mama, the Morrison account is a mess." "Simone." She looked up. I sat down across from her. "I need to tell you something." She saw my face, put the fork down. "Is everything okay?" "Yes and no," I said. "Mama, I'm not sick, nobody died, just—" I put my hands flat on the table. "I need you to listen to me tonight. Really listen. Not with the part of you that's still thinking about the Morrison account." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she picked up her phone, turned it face down. "Okay," she said. I told her about Memphis first, the neighborhood, my mother's hands, my father's Tuesday. She knew some of it, not all of it. Not the $40 in the shoe, not Aunt Clara at the bus station saying, "Go, Loretta, go," before this city decides for you. Simone sat very still. She does that when she's really listening, has done it since she was 4 years old. I told her about Millie's diner, the early shift, the wobbly stool, the man who left a $20 tip on a $4 check. David, Simone said quietly. David, I said. She had met him, grown up between our two houses, known him as the steady presence in her father's role. She had never heard this part, the beginning of it. You loved him, not a question. More than I've loved anything except you and this business. She flinched slightly at that last part. I saw it. I meant for her to. How old were you when you met him? 19. And when he left? 27. She did the math. 8 years. 8 years. And you never... No. Why not? I looked at my hands on the table. Because I kept thinking there would be time. After this deal, after this quarter, after this office opens, after Bright Path is stable. I looked up at her. After. Always after. Simone was very quiet. Mama. I know, baby. I do it all the time. I know. She looked at the table. I didn't realize it was a pattern. She nodded. It's not a pattern yet, I said. That's why I'm telling you now.
Tell me about him, Simone said. You know David. I know the version you showed me. I want the real one. I looked at my daughter. 27 years old, eyes like her father's, sharp, patient, waiting. Okay, I said. David Cole was the steadiest person I have ever known. Steadier than you? Simone almost smiled. Completely different kind of steady. I'm steady like a wall, built up, reinforced, defended. I thought for a moment. David was steady like a river, just kept moving, kept being what he was. Nothing could make him something he wasn't. He was the first person who ever made me feel like I didn't have to earn the right to be loved. Simone went still. What does that mean? It means my whole life, love felt like something you got by performing, by achieving, by being impressive enough, strong enough, useful enough. David didn't need any of that. He just loved me, the actual me, the one that was tired and scared and from South Memphis and had no idea what she was doing. He never asked me to be more. He just kept showing up for who I already was. So what happened? I was quiet for a moment. I got confused, I said finally. Confused about what? About the difference between someone loving you and someone needing you. I looked at her. David loved me. He didn't need me to be a certain thing for that love to continue. It wasn't transactional, but I stopped. What? I was so used to earning things, so used to working for everything I had, that when something came without conditions... You didn't trust it, Simone said. I looked at her. I didn't know what to do with it. I kept waiting for the catch. And while I was waiting for the catch, I was pouring every bit of energy I had into something that did need earning, that did reward effort directly, that gave back exactly what you put in. The business. The business. The last real conversation I had with David, I stopped, picked up my coffee cup, put it down. It was 2006, 2 years after he moved out. Simone was with him for the weekend. I called to say I'd be picking her up late Sunday. And? I said, fine. And then he said, I paused. He said, Loretta, are you happy? Simone waited. And I said, I'm building something, David. The kitchen was completely quiet. That was my answer, I said. He asked me if I was happy, and I told him I was building something. Simone closed her eyes for a second. What did he say? He said, I know you are. I just wanted to hear you say you were happy. And you weren't. I was proud. I was driven. I was terrified and thrilled and exhausted. I shook my head. I wasn't happy, and I didn't know the difference yet. Did you ever tell him that? No. Does he know? I looked at the table. I think he's always known everything about me. That's the thing about David. He saw me more clearly than I saw myself, and I spent 8 years not fully understanding what a rare thing that is.
Tell me about Tobias, I said. Simone looked up, surprised. You know Tobias. Tell me anyway. She thought about it. A real answer, not the automatic one. He's good, she said. That's not what I asked. She looked at me. He's steady, she said slowly. Something crossed her face. He's patient, he's consistent. He shows up. Even when you don't make it easy? She was quiet. I don't make it easy a lot, she said. I know. He never makes me feel bad about it. She stopped. He just adjusts, she finished. And I take that for granted, sometimes. She said it small, like she'd known it for a while and hadn't said it out loud yet. Can I tell you what I've noticed? I asked. Okay. His birthday, in March. You missed dinner, sent flowers instead. Simone looked away. There was a board presentation. I know, I'm not judging. I paused. Naming. She nodded tightly. The weekend you were supposed to go to his family's place in June, canceled 3 days before. The Morrison account was Simone. She stopped. I know, she said quietly. He didn't say anything? He said it was fine. And it wasn't. I don't know. Baby. I looked at her steady. A man who says it's fine when it isn't is doing one of two things. He's either so secure in the love that he genuinely lets it go, or he's deciding something, quietly, the way good men do. Simone sat very still. Tobias loves you the way David loved me, I said. You don't know that. I know the signs. I leaned forward. He remembers things you mention once. He watches your face when you're talking to figure out what you actually mean. He makes your coffee the way you like it without being asked. She stared at me. He learned the names of every person on your team. He asks about them by name. How do you... Because I watch him when you're not looking at him. She was very quiet. That's not normal, Simone. That's not what everybody gets. I thought love was supposed to be, she started. Easy? Natural? Just there? Yeah. It is. When it's right, it is. I shook my head. The mistake I made, the one that cost me everything, wasn't that I worked too hard. What was it? I thought that because love felt steady and reliable, because David, because Tobias, because they were just there, solid, patient. I stopped. I thought that meant it could wait, that solid things don't move, that patient things don't end. I looked at my daughter. Solid things get tired, Simone. Patient things have limits. And the steadiest, most loving man you will ever meet in your life will eventually stop waiting for you to choose him. What happened to him? Simone asked. He built a good life, I said, and I meant it. No bitterness in it, just truth. David finished his master's, moved into healthcare consulting, built something of his own, smaller than Brightpath, quieter. The kind of work that doesn't make magazine covers, but changes things at ground level. Exactly who I always knew he'd be. He married in 2009, woman named Claire, teacher, kind face. I saw the photo online. Looked at it longer than I should have, closed the laptop, got up, made coffee, went back to work. What else was I going to do? He and Claire divorced in 2016. I heard it from Pearl, who heard it from someone who knew someone. I didn't call him. I wanted to. I picked up the phone twice, put it down both times. What was I going to say? I'm sorry, I know what it's like to lose something you built with someone. I didn't call. Simone's engagement party was last November. Tobias's family, our family, friends. Beautiful evening. I was talking to Tobias's mother when I felt something shift in the room. The way a room shifts when someone walks in. I turned. David was standing at the door. Tobias had invited him. Of course he had. David had been in Simone's life since she was a baby. I hadn't prepared myself. He was 56. Gray at the temples now. The steady in him hadn't moved an inch. He saw me from across the room and he smiled. The same smile. Exactly the same. Like 30 years hadn't happened. Like I was still standing behind a diner counter, holding a $20 tip and not knowing what to do with it. I smiled back. My hands were shaking. We talked for maybe 20 minutes. About Simone, about Tobias, about the business, about his work. Easy conversation. The kind that only happens between people who knew each other when they were still becoming who they were. And then someone called him from across the room, and he squeezed my hand once, just once, and walked away. And I stood there, 53 years old, CEO of a company I had built from $40 and a prayer, and I felt 19, just completely, helplessly, devastatingly 19. Pearl found me in the bathroom 10 minutes later. You okay? No. Do you want to talk about it? Not tonight. She put her arm around me. We stood there in front of that mirror, two women in their 50s who had lived a lot of life. Loretta, don't. I'm just going to say one thing. Pearl, you made the choices you made. They were real choices, and you made them for real reasons. And Bright Path is real, and Simone is real, and none of that is nothing. She looked at me in the mirror. But that man loved you like that once. I know. And you let it go. I know. Just know it, she said, so you can tell Simone. Simone was quiet for a long time after I finished. I let her be quiet. That's something I've learned. Not everything needs filling. Finally, she said, "Do you regret it? Building Bright Path?" All of it. I thought about it, honestly. The way you owe your child honesty when they're 27 and about to walk into their own life. No, I said. Really? Really. Bright Path is real. What we built is real. The people we serve are real. I don't regret the work. I looked at her. I regret the believing. What do you mean? I believed that love was the thing you came back to, the thing that would wait, that it was the constant and the work was the variable. I shook my head. I had it exactly backwards. The work will always be there. Another deal, another office, another quarter. The work is infinite. But a person who loves you the way David loved me, I stopped. That is not infinite. That is specific and rare, and it requires tending. Every day. Not after. Now. I'm not saying don't build, I said quickly. I know. I'm saying build. Absolutely build. I will never tell you not to be everything you're capable of being. Then what are you saying? I reached across the table and took her hand. I'm saying Tobias is watching you right now the way David watched me. He's patient and he's steady, and he's not going to ask you to choose. And that is a gift, and it is also a danger. She looked at me. Because the men who don't ask you to choose are the ones you forget to choose. Simone's eyes filled. Mama, I know, baby. I don't want to lose him. Then don't. How? Choose him, out loud, not just in your head, specifically, regularly, before the next deadline asks you to wait. Put him on the calendar if you have to. I know that sounds... It doesn't sound bad, she said softly. It sounds like something I need to hear. She left at 10:30 that night, hugged me at the door longer than usual. Thank you, she said. Don't thank me, just, I know, I will. I watched her walk to her car. my daughter, built like me from the inside, choosing differently. I stood in that doorway until her tail lights disappeared. Then I went back to the kitchen, opened the drawer. The yellow legal pad was still there, David's handwriting next to mine. I took it out, set it on the table, sat with it for a long time. Then I picked up my phone, opened a new message. His name still in my contacts. It sat there a long time. I didn't send anything. I wasn't sure what I would have said, but I held that phone, and I thought about Rivers, about 19 years old and $40 and a bus ticket, about a man on a wobbly stool who left a $20 tip and changed my life, about all the years between then and now, and what they cost, and what they built, and whether any of it, all of it, could have been held differently. I still don't have a complete answer. Maybe that's okay. Maybe the point was never to have the answer. Maybe the point was to know the question well enough to hand it to my daughter before it became hers too. Before I let you go, I want to ask you something. Is there a David in your life? Someone who shows up steady, who remembers the things you mention once, who adjusts without complaining and loves you without conditions? Someone you've been putting after the after. Drop it in the comments. Not their name if you don't want. Just, yes. Just, I see it. Just, I needed to hear this. Because I think some of you have been building something beautiful and forgetting to tend to something equally beautiful right next to it. And if you are Simone, if this landed somewhere specific, go home tonight and choose them out loud before the next deadline asks you to wait. Hit that like button if this story moved something in you. Subscribe to Steph and Steve because this is what we do here. We tell the truths that are hard to say. We sit across kitchen tables. We hand each other the things we needed to hear 20 years earlier. Share this with someone who is building everything and might be forgetting one thing. Thank you for joining. Goodbye.